Question time.
All right, folks. Thank you very much for answering the call in the video that I posted up on Friday. We asked for questions and we got a few people who sent in some good ones. So we'll start off with Curtis from Saskatoon, who writes in, first off, a barrage of questions, actually. What sparked bringing TWF to YouTube after 20 years? And I'll take point here. It was always the plan. It may not seem like it because, yes, it's been 20 years or so at this point.
We'll get to it.
Damian had given me the possession of the videos forever ago, and I told him right there, I'll do it. I kind of remember you saying you didn't want to have it anymore, so I don't know if you would have thrown it away if I'd said no.
That sounds like something that I would have said, because at the time I was done with it. I mean, it felt to me like it was highly emotional for me too, and everyone just kind of moving on kind of pissed me off. Because again, the backstage drama that we'll get into a little bit, but the real reason, if we're going to be out there, we made a promise to every member of TWF that we were going to digitize this stuff and burn them all copies of DVDs. We did not do that. Why? Because we're human beings, we're lazy, and we have other things going on. And sitting there digitizing stuff really doesn't sound like fun. But we did make that promise, and Malcolm and I both have a high level of integrity, and we don't tell you something and not follow through with it. So although we're not making DVDs, we thought this was a great way to get TWF back out there. And it allows every member to go onto YouTube, watch the show, show their family, show their wives that they didn't have when they were doing it, show their children that they didn't have when they were doing it. And I'm excited to say, not in my case, but in some people's case, TWF and the release of these videos has made these families closer, because, like, I'm not going to say who, but it really touches my heart to know that one of the daughters of one of our performers was like, "Dad, you are so cool."
And for the record, I can't tell you how many different forms of program and technology because I did try to go through the DVD section. You know, at first that was a new thing. I actually still have it's actually right here, the VHS to DVD player, and I still have a bunch of blank DVDs, as well as the cases that was going to be. I have like this mountain of DVD cases.
So we planned on doing it. We just didn't get around to it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I did. There's actually in those cases quite a few DVDs that I thought had burned the events on there. And I was like halfway through the events before I thought, let me check one. And it was blank. They were all blank. And at that point, I lost the heart to do it.
Yeah.
And I also tried various programs on my computer that were supposed to do VHS to DVD or digital later on. Like, it's funny because I kind of went with technology as like more and more options came. That still didn't work for whatever reason. So it was finally just before the pandemic. I saw this handy little device, which I wish I could remember the name of it, but essentially it was its own thing. It doesn't connect to a computer. It can connect to the TV, but it doesn't need it because it has a little screen right there built into it. And you basically plug it into the VCR, you put a thumb drive in it, and you hit record as it plays on the VHS, and it digitizes it as it plays. It seemed really simple. And the pandemic had just started, so I figured this would have been a great project. Now, keep in mind, during this whole thing, I'm getting married. I'm moving multiple times. Pandemic. There's quite a few things that are going on at this time while juggling all this. Of course, everyone has lives, but I tried it once and then something happened. Oh, I know what happened. A dentist messed up my mouth, and now I lost feeling in half of it. But after I got over that, I went back to it. and it worked. Like I could see the file, I would plug it into a computer, I would play it, and it worked. And I got excited. I kept going, and finally, I messaged Damian in August, May, but in the summer, and I told him, "Dude, I figured it out." And what do you figured out? I figured out how to get TWF, and that's when we started collabing. We came up with the idea: what could be easier instead of sending like 20, 30 hard drives to people? We put it on YouTube. They can go watch it if they want to. There are super legal ways to record a video playing on YouTube that they could look into if they really
Yeah,
want the digital files
exactly.
for themselves. Also, and but the plan was always to do this. This is like I've been joking with Damien for years that this is the albatross that's been on my back for like ages of getting this to people, and it's really cool. We got a chat room. We got a lot of people, including a lot of people we hadn't talked to since then on there. I know T has really been enjoying seeing the stuff. Like I
And
can,
he was just added to the chat just recently.
yeah, and Falcon is super stoked. A lot of people are really enjoying seeing this. We reconnected with Miz, who we'd lost touch with. So it feels good that we're almost there. It sounds like we're like 2-3 events away. Then we got the extra stuff, but in 2-3 events, we'll have every event we have up there for people to see.
Yeah,
So
and the coolest part is the last event is a 4-hour spectacular. Four
I think
hours, people. A 4-hour long event.
moving on. Curtis also asks us, how did you convince people to well, hold on one sec. How did people find you guys? How did you find guys to join? Essentially, how did we recruit for the company here? I'll start here as I want your input, especially on number 3 here.
Okay.
As far as how did people find you guys to join? Well, me and Damian had quite a few tricks that we would employ in the never-ending search to not just have 6 guys wrestling each other 20 times on every show. So,
those were the days.
First of all, I can't stress enough how many backyard feds there were back then. Keep in mind, timeline wise, this would have been short, not that long after the famous Mankind footage of Dude Love.
I just want to add one other thing before you go here because I think it's hilarious. I don't know if you remember this, but Malcolm is correct, and I'll let him drive that point home and explain what he's talking about. But one day we went from the college to go get pizza, and we came down from Linden State College, and we were on the way to the pizza. Remember, we drove by the Puking Pig, and there was a group doing backyard wrestling, and we never discovered who those guys were. So there was another group of backyarders in Lindenville that we didn't know anything about. Continue.
But yeah, ever since Dude Love dropped that elbow, which people often forget that he wasn't in a backyard fed, it just was filmed on home video. Oh, he was just recording a movie, but people saw that and thought, hey, we need to start backyard fed. And this was in the height of the Attitude Era, back when everyone loved professional wrestling as much as I do. And we had feds all over the place. Our closest competition famously was EBW. You also had VCW starting up here and there. Grave Tavern had ICWF. We also had World Virgil Federation way down below us. There, and according to them, various members of ours had their own little backyard feds that may have consisted of just them and another person, but there were feds all over the place. So me and Damian would essentially advertise. And the advertisement was me and Damian would find these guys. We would say, hey, we're backyard wrestlers too. How about we work a match? And they're like, yeah, sure. We'd go down there and we would have the Damian and Malcolm experience. And we would go out there, work our butts off. Usually we're given like 10, 15 minutes to do so, plenty of time. And afterwards, it's the owners of the company and various other wrestlers like, oh wow, dude, that was awesome. Like, dude, if you thought that was cool, wait till you see an entire event from our show, TWF. Here's the address. Hey, I saw your match earlier. Maybe you'd like to have a match over with us. And that's essentially that was what we did to network. And then from there, they would be like, hey, would you work some other matches with us? So we would say, yeah, sure. Building up the rapport, building up the friendship there. This is how we got guys like Falcon, Odd Pauls, Sammy Danger, Grave Tavern, and yes, BJ, they to all come aboard. So that was like the easiest way to do that. Also, word of mouth was always key. That's why Iron Claw is such a really an important member of our group. He was responsible for guys like Cross, Kingpin, Black Ice, who became perennial favorites of the company. And
we call them the TWA trainees.
And this also led to guys like Miz, Stickman, and T joining up eventually. The Rook, like it led to an entire little subgroup. So Iron Claw is a very important guy for the company, and those guys went on to become big names. However, and I did allude to this back when Big Time did the interview over in Wham's channel. Damian is really good at talking people into stuff. We got guys like Grizzly. Grizzly to this day probably has never watched a wrestling match. Rainbow Warriors, Sandman, guys that didn't really care about wrestling. And somehow this man, either there or there, convinced them, you know what you should do? Come to my come over to our place where I'll throw you on your back repeatedly and hit you with a steel chair across the back. It's good fun. So Damian, please, for the live studio audience here, how did you do it?
That's a great question. And all I can think about when you asked me that is that video that we did on my channel where it's like he would talk to these people's parents and he'd be like, I'm going to hit your kid in the head with a chair and you need to be excited about this. I basically, I walked the people through what was going to happen. I said, one, you're going to get to spend time with us. You'll be a part of our role-playing group, which was another thing that we were doing at the time. You'll get to come and hang out at my place, which, although they'll probably never admit it, was very beneficial to them because if you come over to Damian's apartment, you can bring your girlfriend and there's no parents watching you. So you can spend time with your girlfriend without the harping eyes of your parents going, why are you in your bedroom with the door shut and stupid crap like that. But I think the major selling point was I said to these people, I said, you're going to be on TV and you're going to be hanging out with us and we will train you and you're going to be an important figure in this thing that we're doing. It's going to be something that you can talk about for years because nobody's doing this. And I think that's really what drove it home. And I think before we were on public access, I would say, guys, we're going to have tapes. You'll have copies. You'll be able to show it to everyone, you know, blah, blah, blah. I sold the spectacle. And what I tried to do, and it's funny because I've talked about this with some of the people on the thread. They're like, you used to get pissed at us and yell at us and yap at us and kind of belittle us for the way we would do commentary on the shows. And it used to piss us off. And we used to think you were a dick. And I had to be. I was the leader, and a leader has to make the hard decisions sometimes. But the thing that they understand now that they didn't understand then is that every human being that joined us, whether they were a wrestler or not, wanted to feel like that superhero or that supervillain when they were in that freaking ring. And they have every right, since they were paid nothing, to feel that way. And when people would belittle them because they thought it was funny because they were commentary, that pissed me off. Because if I'm sitting there in front of a show, I put on the best stuff that I can, and I'm pretty proud of myself, and I can't wait to sit and see it. and I'm watching myself do these cool flips or suplexes or DDTs or what have you. And Malcolm's on the commentary going, this guy couldn't get a job anywhere. He can't sell. He can't do this. Or this guy's just a big fat idiot, you know, whatever it may be. How is my experience watching that? So what I essentially was telling people is you get to be a superhero, you get to be a supervillain, and there will be videographer proof of you doing that, and you can share it with people. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I feel that does a fantastic job there. Yes. All right. How did you convince people to wrestle for you for free?
I think we just covered that.
Yeah. To put it into quicker terms here, guys like me and Damian, Kyle, who just lived and breathed it. Yeah, of course we're going to do it for free. We're just looking for a reason to wrestle, to be honest.
Yeah, we love wrestling. That's why.
Other people, you know, it was a way to hang out and have fun. And honestly, Lyndonville was that boring. So there was that too.
That is a huge factor. We're in no man's land in Vermont with nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
What a better way to fire off that testosterone than to beat up your friends and film it.
All right. Curtis from Saskatchewan asks, was there ever any major backstage drama? Ooh.
You're opening a damn can of worms with that. Absolutely. As I alluded to a little earlier, you had your prima donnas. Now, the problem with prima donnas is you can bring a guy into your indie fed or your backyard fed, and they can be insanely talented. And they can be like, hey, I'm the best goddamn wrestler you have. I deserve this title shot. I deserve this storyline. I want more camera time, blah, blah, blah. But when I started TWA the second time, and we'll get into that a little bit later, my feeling was the people who weren't the best but attended all the events, were practicing, going to the trainings, showing me that they were dedicated to becoming better. Those are the people I put the titles on, the reliable people. But you're always going to have the prima donnas who are like, I'm so much better than Damian. I should have this title. Then you put it on him and then he disappears. And then you're like, great, now the title looks stupid because I'm better has it. And that's the only event they come to. Then they show up 4 months later and they expect the same treatment. That's not how it works. And when you tell them that, they would get insanely pissed off. Malcolm and I got into a heated discussion about UFO. UFO can only see out of one eye, which makes him an oddity for sure. But UFO was training. He was practicing. He went to every event. He started storylines for himself when he wasn't doing anything, which when that happened to us, I remember Malcolm and I are like, he just booked his own feud. And Malcolm's like, yeah, more people should do that.
No.
And UFO, God, I love that you came out and do that. Where's that idiot Grizzly? He's supposed to wrestle me. That's great stuff. But he's never a great wrestler. Even though, if you don't know this, he actually had a great match with Pony Hardcore. I don't remember what event it was, but he did a freaking Hurricane Rana, and he did it very well. It's awesome. So good job to you, UFO. But we had a discussion, and Malcolm had said to me, I'm thinking about giving the whatever the title was to this individual. And I was like, we're going to give it to Rob. And he's like, Rob isn't good enough. We're already going in this direction. And I'm like, again, I know you're the head booker, but you need to look at the analytics here in terms of dedication, coming, and everything that they're doing. Rob clearly, UFO clearly deserves it more than this other person. So, yes, there was a lot of backstage drama. And, of course, the aforementioned reason for Ben leaving, but that's not going to be discussed. Now, how about Malcolm answers that question?
All right. So I got some juice. I got some juicy stories here that I will share here.
Okay,
Hopefully,
great.
doesn't make Damian squirm too much here. But so
Remember,
we
I
start.
said I can be a dick, and I was.
So we're gonna rewind back to Rebirth, the very beginning of my first show. Now, when I had started there, Damian had showed me all this footage of not just of episode 0, which is coming, but he also showed me LSWF, which was a wrestling fed that was literally operating out of Linden State College that Damian was performing in as well. And he showed a character named Test Tickle. You know, two separate words, not one. Very important there for YouTube. But it was this very, very fun character. You've actually seen him if you watch Gangbangers 7, played by BJ. And I basically, from watching all the footage, I like, okay, two people I want to work with are Damian, and I would like to have a feud with Testicle. And I asked Damian, keep in mind, I was not a booker or anything right out of the gate. I was just some schmo from New York who was making the drive and or taking the bus, so to speak. And I asked, okay, how do I get into feuds? And he's like, yeah, just go out there, cut a promo. I'm like, that's it? And they're like,
That's
yeah,
it.
just go out there, cut a promo. At the very least, I'm going to book a match for you. And, at best, you're going to get like this big, huge storyline, but it starts with the promo. So I was like, okay, good, I'm in. So I had plans for Anaconda, which turned into a little angle on there with me as special guest rep, as you guys may recall. And I also did an impression of Testicle, uh, saying that he
Brilliant
made.
impression, by the way.
Thank you. I actually went out, spent some money. That is literally a Rubbermaid kitchen glove on my hand there that I somehow fit around my head to be the swimming cap there. So I cut the promo, and like, great, like, and you're gonna show this to BJ, and he's like, yeah, yeah. And now, little did I know that time would come, I think, the day after. And I was still there from the visit, and Damian was like, hey, would you like to come with me to see his reaction? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, keep in mind, all I have to
I,
go
I would
on how.
also like to prelude this by saying I was not aware that this individual was such a douche behind the scenes. I mean, he seemed really great to me for the entire time I was working with the LSWF and all that. So I thought this would have went better.
If I was writing an autobiography or doing a DVD documentary on BJ, the subtitle would be BJ seemed like a nice guy at the time, but
Wrong, he
so,
wasn't.
so we go into his dorm because he was at Linden, and I introduced myself. Damien's like, hey, great news, we got a hot angle for you in TWF. And he's like, all right, let's see it. And he pops in the tape, and he's right there at the part where I come out doing the impression. And I'm waiting for the reaction, and I'll never forget the look on his face. It was like he was watching a kid getting eaten alive. It was just this look of absolute disgust. And then he releases this barbarian like yell, and he charges at me and start throwing hands at me. Now, at first I just thought he was working, which more on that in a second. And then he grabs multiple objects from the ground and starts nailing me with it. He hits me with like chairs that are in the dorm, he hits me with various things, and I'm selling it. And he's like, oh. And he goes back in the dorm, starts going back and forth with Damian. And I get up eventually, and he's still looking at the tape. And like a few minutes later, Damien's like, all right, we got to go. I'm like, oh, okay. So we're in the car. And this led to so apparently he was shoot upset that we did the angle. And when he punched me, as Damian would explain, which became a running gag for the rest of our lives,
I'm hitting you for real.
He dropped the note that John explained to him, you let him know when I was punching him, he was hitting me. I was hitting him for real. and which led to the very infamous reaction from me. He was.
For real, it's real.
So this would
Oh,
continue into gangbangers where he insisted that he destroy me. Like if you saw that match, like I was lucky to get my finisher off. I did, and he shot right back up, hit me with his, and that was it. And it kind of sucked. I at the time I sort of took it as like I don't know, like paying my dues, so to speak. I was like 2 months into the business, so to speak,
yeah,
and I was sort of shooting for the moon. So I didn't like it. Don't get me wrong. Like I thought at the very least it could be a competitive match. I would later to go on to have a competitive match with Anaconda, where he did not destroy me inside of 5 minutes and kick out of my stand up after taking my move. But that was one that I will never forget. There was also one that happened quite recently where I lost the IWF title to Grizzly, which I remember because I was furious afterwards, as he was essentially doing the same thing, but an extended version where he just thought it would be funny if he didn't sell anything, essentially. He
yeah,
just
not
destroyed
cool.
me. Not cool. There was one part. Now, I was extremely flexible back in the day. He has me in a Boston crab, but he's legit sitting on my back. So it was tough for me to breathe at that point. And like you can literally hear me say that he's choking me or something like that while he has me in the move. That was a shoot. I was having trouble breathing. And I remember Demona laughing in the back, and he's laughing. And the annoying thing was the plan was always for me to lose to give him the belt. And I just sort of looked like this chump afterwards or what have you. Uh, that's kind of the crapshoot you took with Grizzly. He was sort of our Vader. Like people would like I remember Black Ice joking with me is like having a match with him and thinking that he owed Grizzly money. Like just from his working punches.
Yes,
Uh
in the industry, we call it working stiff. Grizzly was stiff in every match. And
like
for 80% of his career, we would say to him, learn wrestling moves. And he would go, no, I want to do the move where I grab your arm and I wrap it around your face and slam your head into the ground. And we're like, that is not a move. Focus on your clotheslines, your body slams, your power bombs, your DDTs, and work with the moves we know are safe and that we train you to use. Then, when you're good at those, then you can start inventing your moves. It doesn't work the other way around.
yeah, and it did have some repercussions. You may notice that I didn't really work with Grizzly ever again after this.
Yep.
And depressingly, it kind of killed that title because the whole point of that title is like you could challenge for it like out of character. And I had quite a few people who wanted to work with me, of course, which I really, really enjoyed. Like my match with Miz, we'll get into. But as soon as Grizzly won the title, and I think it's a lot to do with the effect on how that match went down. You may notice that he faced Rob like 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
That's mainly because Rob was the only one who wanted to do the match with him. So, and it effectively killed off the title, unfortunately. But that was a major one with Grizzly. And there was one time with Tough. We had a match at we actually went to EBW. We wrestled at Memorial Day Massacre. It was this big group trip. It was one of the few times we traveled to another Fed with a lot of the gang, I should say.
And I think that was their last event too, right?
No, they had a few more after that.
Oh, okay, so. All right, but they were winding down though.
Yeah, and me and him were booked together. We planned the match. I was going to go over. We talked about it like for a few hours, and then now once again, Tough, great guy to work with. Hard worker. He came back from a broken femur, so you got to respect him. But I'll never forget it. They're playing my music so I could come out to the ring. And then all of a sudden, Tough is like, you know what? I actually want to win the match. And I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like they're playing my music. I need to go out there. So, and even though we had planned for everything with me to win, and it makes more sense considering what I'm doing later in the show. If I do, like I can't, like, all right, fine. And the match didn't. I did the best I could in match, but I was annoyed, and I'm one of those where if I'm annoyed at something, it takes away from it. And we talked about it afterwards. We're fine now, but that is like a cardinal no trying to pull that. And then I think the most famous example that's actually on film as far as like drama, except I guess this doesn't count because it was on camera. Well, of course, was
out of kayfabe.
There was the time that Ding Dong Doyle attacked both a commentator and you with the chair, which led to that uncomfortable moment there. So
yeah, which had me using real fighting maneuvers that I've learned in my martial arts training to restrain him.
And he would one of the guys he attacked was Paul, which everyone gives Paul grief that he was poking fun at him, and it was enraging. Like
called him an Oompa Loompa. That is not a reason to attack somebody with a camera with a trash can lid.
And not only is that not a good reason, I heard the commentary EBW was doing, which Doyle probably would have heard even better. They were a million times worse to him on the can. So I don't want to hear about it as far as Paul goes. Anyway, that's the ones I could remember off the top of my head.
The last one that I'll bring up, because we need to move on. We have other questions, but I'm not going to say the wrestler's name. They know who they are. Being the leader, actually, I have two quick stories. Because this other one is also relevant to drama in that sense. One of the wrestlers was really sick of my showboating. And I have nothing but respect for this individual because this individual didn't care that I was a prick, didn't care that I was a leader, but he did it the right way. He pulled me aside. I don't remember if it was in my kitchen or where it was, but he pulled me away from the group and he said, "You're being a fucking douchebag. It's all about you. You're doing all these moves and da and you have to look great and da and you don't care about the product." Now, I may have been doing those things, but what this individual didn't seem to understand is that at that time and my entire career, that was my thing. I wasn't doing it to showboat. I wasn't doing it to make it about me. I was doing it because that's what made my characters, the acrobatic and martial arts stuff that I could do that until Miz came, no one else could do. Then when Miz came, I had to step up my game because if you watch Miz and I flip higher than Miz, but his backflips and stuff are all prettier than mine. He's smoother than me. He's more impressive than me, and his size, it works even better. So I have nothing but respect for this individual coming right to my face and saying, "I have a problem with you. Your behavior sucks. I want you to fix it." And we ironed it out. So, and the last story is a new individual came into the company or to the club, brought in from somebody else. Again, I'm not going to name names here, but we're a wrestling company. Everything starts from the collar elbow tie up. And the wrestlers are down. That's where they talk. Okay, what sequences are we doing? That's how you hide your face from the camera. And normally you want to keep your voice down. So the commentary adds to hide that if they're actually talking. But this person was brought to my attention. I was excited because I always like meeting new people. But I was told this individual has been in millions and millions of bar fights. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So we got a heavy drinker here. Obviously, it's a wrestling business. So you have, alcohol and drugs and all that stuff. Although for the most part, we were clean. But I'm just saying this not to say, oh, yeah, we're all about that stuff. I'm just saying this so you know the kinds of people that like wrestling, not that there's anything wrong with that. What you do in your own time is fine, but not in the ring. So anyway, this individual, I was told that they get into bar fights and they freak out and they're going to attack. And I said, okay, bring him in. I'm going to sit him down and explain to him why that's going to be a bad idea for him. So I meet the guy. He's a great guy. I have nothing but respect for him. He's an amazing wrestler. And again, I'm not going to share who that is, but he did amazing in the shows that he was a part of. So I said to him, I sat him down and I said, let me sit you down and let you know something. See these guys over here? And I'm pointing to, like, we'd all congregate in my apartment on Friday night. Everyone come in, all the buses would come in, people would drive from out of town. And it's like a slumber party, you know, everyone's sleeping on the floor because there's not enough beds and everything. And then the next morning we go to the headquarters and film. I sit this kid down and I say to him, I was told that you've been in a lot of bar fights, and if somebody grabs your throat, you're going to attack them and you do it on instinct. And the kid confirmed that. And I said, see these guys here? They don't get paid anything to do this show. They're on TV. That's the bonus they get. They get to see themselves on live television. I said, and they're my best friends. This group is my family. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is professional wrestling. Someone is going to grab your throat. The first move, the collar elbow tie up, is grabbing your throat. So let me put it to you this way. If you have a flip out because you're, you know, having a bar fight or whatever, or a memory in your head, and you attack one of my guys for real, I will beat you into the ground. I said, because these guys are my family, and I don't know you. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is wrestling. Your throat will be grabbed. And if you attack any of my guys, I'm going to make you very sorry that you chose to do that. So in conclusion, and a way to round out this question, because I just got the time warning, so that's great. Yes, there was plenty of backstage drama.
So moving on to the next question. Worst person to book for? And I'll preface this with, let me explain all the way. For me, I got 3 answers here. One person in particular, Grizzly. And essentially, have you ever heard those stories about hearing opponents when they hear that they're wrestling the Road Warriors or Stan Hansen, Brody, or what have you? It was like that a lot for when I would tell people, okay, you're going to take on Grizzly this event. And look, that's one of the natures of the business. It would be great if everyone punched like The Rock, where they're barely making contact. Yeah, but you're going to have some stiff guys in there too, and you know, you're never going to say their punches look weak because they're legit like manhandling and whatnot. So Grizzly was kind of in that category. It was actually kind of, after a while, seeing like these people are like, okay, you're going to wrestle the Grizzly. The exhale, and you know, you're in for a night. But that was one there. Special shout out to out of towners, mainly because I realized that I was kind of an exception when I was an out of towner, and that sometimes they were just going to call you the day of the show and say, yeah, I can't do it. Also, I was the right for this guy too. He can't make it either.
Yeah, those were fun because that happened a lot.
Yeah. And anything that involved the mass amount of EBW people being there, they were very sophomoric, and it was easy to get into there. That's one of the reasons why, like, I fell into that completely in Gangbangers 7, where I was just completely obnoxious in that one as well. And they tended to group up together, which led to some unfortunate situations. But those are the 3 that stick out for me. Anything to add on this, buddy?
For me, the hardest people to book for was everyone. And what I mean by that is the storylines were so important to these people and what we were doing. And like I said before, I didn't give a rip about where I was at on the card. I was at the top of the card from the very beginning because I was the guy teaching everyone. That only makes sense. Every once in a while, you come across a Malcolm or a Miz or, somebody that comes in that has had prior experience or is just natural, but it's highly uncommon. So I got to the point where I was sick of hearing the bickering and the whining and all that. And like I said, I never cared about where I was at in the card. All I cared about is that we're all having a good time, which is why when I had had enough of it, I come home from work. I had a really terrible day. And my roommate, because at that time Malcolm was living with me, he says, I've been thinking about TWA and I want to run some ideas by you. And he hands me this binder and I look at it. And for the first moment since I'd been doing this, and I've been doing it a hell of a lot longer than even these people realize, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. But I just looked at him and I said, you know what? I'm thinking, I'm like, he's put a lot of thought into this. And frankly, I'm about ready to tear my hair out. I can't deal with this shit. So I was like, put my hand out. And he's like looking at me like, what? And then he shakes my hand and I said, welcome. You are now the VP of TWA and you're the head booker. So start writing stories just like you have. I said, just give me some heads up on the details and boom. And that's how I got that headache off my shoulders. But
and if I can
go ahead.
I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. That's another popular story. Like at that point, I'd been living with you for like a month, and I was home. You were at work at Aramart, I believe, at the time, and I was looking for stuff to do. Once again, Lindenville, and I was like, okay, well, we got these guys. He could pair off with him. That'd be good. What if these two guys formed a tag team and they could feud with these guys? That'd be good. So I wrote like this whole sheet of ideas, and Damian comes back home and he is wiped. He is barely on his feet, hands at his side, looking like the Walking Dead. And I was like, hey, Damian. He's like, hey, I can tell you're tired. When you got a chance, I wrote this out for you. And he looks at it and he's like, what's that? And it's like, oh, these are some ideas for stuff people can do with the TWF. I thought it'd be an idea. You don't have to do them. That's fine. And I honestly don't think you looked at it again. You just saw the notepad, and he's like, like, congratulations, you're the new VP and head booker TWF. And then you went to bed and you went to sleep for 3 hours, and I'm like, what? Like, it's like, bro, we met like 4 months ago. Come on.
But in all seriousness, there were points where, Malcolm and I wouldn't be on the same page because I had the most fun in the golden era when him and I were booking together. But in the early going, so many new people coming in at once, it became really frustrating because you had Grave Tavern, who was the only wrestler in our group that was actually a professional wrestler. So we had access to all that knowledge. And one day I'm going to ask him why he didn't share any. My guess is because we had fat heads and we thought we knew everything. That would be my go-to answer. But in all seriousness, coming to a side, I would say the original TWA members are very hard to book because their consistency in driving down and being available every month was very hard. And I don't blame them. I'm not mad about it. It's just the way it worked out. And then I also had trouble later on with all these new people that would come in from other companies and expect these insane pushes right out of the gate. I'm not against giving somebody a push. I like to push everyone no matter what their level is if they show me dedication. But you can't come in just because you were so and so at the scrapyard, and you have 17 titles over there, and blah blah blah, and you've been wrestling for 8 years doing that. Now you're with us and expect that you're going to be the top of the card. Because as Malcolm said earlier, and it's true, how did you get the storylines you wanted? You didn't wait for us to write them for you. You had to open your mouth and say something. Malcolm did that from the get-go. Infinity did that from the get-go. UFO did that from the get-go. And all the ones that had the best stories were the people that just decided, I don't need anyone to write the story. I know who I want to work with, and I'm going to insult them and make that happen. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you. That's a great question, by the way.
What does TWF stand for? Clearly, the Wrestling Federation.
This is one of those things. You know, we go over the rebranding, right? TWA was originally just wrestling group, WG, and then Terminator says to Bugman and I think the Druid was there for this too, and he's like, don't you think we should have like a legitimate name? And that's when Heartbreak Kid brought this brace that he would use to help him load like the Pepsi bottles and stuff to all the stops, because he was a Pepsi delivery driver at the time. And he's like, I got a belt. We can use this for our title. And that became a running gag because Scatman would wear that when we resurfaced and came back. But originally we were a wrestling group. Then we became Titan Wrestling Association. Then we rebranded as Titan Wrestling Federation. And then we rebranded again. And I think Keith Be Real coined the term. And I loved it when it happened. He's like, nope. We're not TWA, we're not TWF. And I think in that event, that whatever was covering the second window had fallen down. And he's like, oh no, he destroyed the F. We're the Wrestling Federation. And then that's what we were, the Wrestling Federation. Then the Bermuda Triangle angle hit. TWF was destroyed. So then the few of us that wouldn't let go brought Titan Wrestling Association back. We did an event as them. Then we did the finale. And then the non-canon resurface of TWA 3 or TWF 3 happened. And to this day, Malcolm and I don't consider that canon. No offense, Havoc and Turk Doodley. Sorry, we just don't consider it canon.
All right. If you could do it all over again, what would you do? Which is such a great question.
It's a phenomenal question that Malcolm and I had an entire phone call on. So whoever submitted this question, I want to let you know that Malcolm and I are going to get into this, but this video is insanely long as it is. So we're going to do another video on just that question.
Absolutely. All right. You ready to break some hearts?
Yeah, time to get hurt. Here we go.
All right. If you were to construct the TWF Mount Rushmore, who would you put on there?
Mount Rushmore.
You never heard of this one?
Hey, I get the reference. Like, who are the four faces of the company? Like, right? That's freaking brilliant. Well, you can't. It doesn't exist without the guy who invented it. So even though none of you know who this guy is, the Terminator has to be on there. Obviously, I would be one of the faces. Malcolm would be another face. And if I'm being totally honest, I really can't draw because we had so many great, talented individuals. So the last spot would have to go to somebody who existed in the Bermuda Triangle era. So seeing as how this individual is insanely active on the thread and is showing, us a ton of love. And I'm so excited that we're able to reconnect, even though he took something from me and it was very annoying, but I would have to put Miz on the Mount Rushmore also.
And I should stress, if we don't put you on here, you're still great. This is not a fun
No
question.
disrespect is intended
Yeah.
because none of you know who Terminator is, and he has to be there because, as many of you probably don't know, I did not invent TWF. I just kept it going.
Hmm.
He invented it, but we'll get into that later on.
All right. I will. So mine will be a little bit different, mainly because I have a different perspective, obviously, is from Damian, but Damian and for sure is on there. Me. Uh, are you?
Obviously.
It's like you invited me back for the last show and put me in the main event.
Yeah.
uh,
Sorry, no one in TW. We're not burning you here. We're just being honest.
yeah,
I
yeah.
actually, in the comments below to the TWF talent watching this video, why don't you tell us what yours would be? I think that would be
I,
more interesting.
I would be very curious too. I would put I would put Falcon. I caught for some reason, probably because he's a bird. But Falcon, of course, is on there. I don't think he gets enough credit. He
Oh,
was such.
he is amazing, and he's the only individual actually wanted to be my tag partner.
Yeah, fantastic wrestler. He was such a great morale boost in the back as well. He got along with everybody. He made everyone happy to be there. Unlike us, we hated everybody. No, but he was
Now that was
fantastic.
me. Everyone hated me, and I hated everyone.
uh, but Falcon was a tremendous addition, and I mentioned him earlier. I would have to say Iron Claw, just because of how many people we got thanks to his involvement, and he was also a tremendous character as well, and held it down very well in the Bermuda era. I
Well,
thought.
I got to tell you, this is really interesting information. This is coming in a future video, fans. But I got to tell you, based on what I'm seeing here, I think Iron Claw was in more wrestling matches than anyone in TWF history.
Dang.
And that's no bullshit. I'm dead serious. Because his brackets, I mean, it says 15 there and 7. And I'm not done yet.
He
Iron
was a
Claw,
workhorse.
that's you, bro.
All right, you continue. All right, next question. Were you ever on TV? Come on. If so, what
No,
was the
absolutely
viewership?
not. We didn't get this out there until we were on YouTube. Again, Kingdom Access Television, thank you so much. We love you guys.
Yeah. For it to give something here, quick backstory. Me and Damian were working at Ames at the time.
Yep.
And basically, I remember you saying it's a shame we're not on TV or something. I'm like, oh, that's pretty easy if you wanted to. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, there's a public access channel. They'll put on anything, dude. You can just
Yeah,
give
as
them
long
a
as they
tape
get
there.
content, they'll put you on.
And he's like, that's a great idea, Malcolm. Go do that. What? Yeah, go reach.
Here's
You're
your
not.
VP duty. Go get us on TV.
Congratulations. You're also the president of mass distribution as well. And like, dude,
I had a ton of
we're on.
jobs I don't want to do that you're going to do for me.
It's like, dude, I'm on break. What? So yeah, this led to me reaching out to Jamie, who had that interview where we talked about where, yeah, he not only let us in, he taught us how to edit. Like I was not in college at LLC, but he taught me how to do the editing on there. And yeah, from there on in, we were on TV. It was
Yeah.
surreal that first show. Granted, some of them weren't always great. Sometimes we were on at like 6 a.m. or midnight or something like that.
Yeah,
But
we had
even
really shitty time spots in the beginning, but it got a lot better over time as we gained traction, and then we actually aired, not necessarily Greco-Roman on TV, without any audio. I have no idea if anyone watched that, but we were popular in Lindenville, and I can account 2 times where I was addressed. Actually, one of the names that I adopted, like To those who know my YouTube channel, I go by the name Huzamajinger. That was given to me at my medical shipping job by a supervisor who didn't know what my name was. So he always referred to me as Huzamajinger, and I adopted that. Well, I met a kid at White's Market in Lindenville, and he points at me and he goes, I saw you on TV last night. You're that top rope ninja guy. And I'm like, top rope ninja? That's actually brilliant. So I started using that.
Nice. All right. This one's going to be tough. Proudest moments. So I'll go first here as far as proudest moment. A lot of these will be a little fun. Number one, fixing Infinity's back. Like when I started as a pro wrestler, what my favorite wrestler is Bret Hart. And something he was always proud of is that he never hurt someone in the ring. While I can't exactly say that, I can say that my wrestling actually helped someone feel better. It was actually during a training session for Rebirth. And this should have been a hint that Damian saw something in me, because it was me, it was Running Man, it was Infinity all in there. And I guess you had to go to the bathroom. It was like, Malcolm, teach these guys some wrestling. Look, this is my first day too, dude. Just loves throwing stuff at me. It's like, all right. So I began thinking, okay, you're big men. What are some big guy moves for you? Have you ever thought about doing a sidewalk slam? And Running Man was like, I've never seen one before. That sounds rough. It's like, no, it's pretty easy here. And I should have asked Infinity to do it to me in hindsight, but I decided, no, I'll give him the move. I pick up this big monstrosity of a man in a sidewalk slam, drop him on his back, and then I hear, oh, and I'm like, oh no, no. Like, are you all right? And Infinity's like, you just fixed my back. and and he gets up and he's like moving like that was great. And you come back, so how's it going? It's like, I fixed his back. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. So little moment for me. As a booker, the build everything from the beginning of the summer to what I call Snowbrawl 2, just because of Snowbrawl 98. But I love Snowbrawl. I love, I would say over 50% of the matches all had build, all had a story from it, from Viper versus Anaconda to even Ranger versus Grizzly. Grizzly, who was famous for ducking the challenge of Ranger for once. Like, all the matches had some great story and build to it. I thought it was like, oh, okay, A+ booking there. Big money in a time where people were turning on their partners immediately. Me and him went on to do great stuff as a tag team, and he proved me wrong in many instances. And from how we were as a tag team to the split, I couldn't have asked for anything better. The Grave Tavern feud, which was this was right off the heels of me having the feud with you, which went, I thought, great.
Really well.
However, there was that assumption. There was always like, maybe it was in the back of my head, but I always assumed it was in other people's head. It's like, yeah, it was a good feud, but you were with Damian, though. Like, could you do it with somebody else?
You need to do a feud with a character that's not one of the originators.
It's like, yeah, it was cool because Damian can do all these cool flips and shit and stuff. Why don't so I thought, okay, so I'll do something good with somebody else. So I reached out to Grave. This was the first time, like, you and me get along great. So this is like the first time that I reached out to someone who we really talked to. And not only did we get along great to the fact that we formed a friendship, but he trusted me in the course of the food. He trusted me with his brainchild, the Highway to Hell match, which I don't believe he'd have been able to do up until that point, but he trusted me to do it, and it went off great. And he enjoyed working with me so much, and I still have it in my closet. I have Grave Tavern's actual leather jacket that he wore to the ring.
That's
it has been
awesome.
a treasure. Yeah, has been a treasure of mine, just like him giving me that stamp of approval. Let's see.
From a professional wrestler, no doubt.
Indeed. Indeed here. Other than that, getting on TV, which we discussed, the amount of people that in time wanted to work with me. It was like when Havoc / Diamond Wyman / whatever. When we wrestled for the first time, I'll never forget how happy he was in our apartment. It was like, you and me are gonna wrestle. And it was one of those things like, okay, I think I'm doing good.
Yeah.
The amount of time Rebirth was an important achievement to me. The fact that you trusted me with the IC title like immediately, something that I wish people had the same sentiment for after me. But
yeah, no.
and also the rare statistic, which last I checked with Damian has not been replicated, but I am currently the only wrestler in TWA TWF history to challenge for every single active title at this in one event.
That is correct. No one else has done that.
Yeah. So
although other people have tried to replicate it. So for me, as I told you before, my favorite thing about wrestling was making a good match. And my proudest moments were when I stepped into the ring with Zorn after our discussion backstage, and he tore me apart in that match. I'm very proud of that match. It's not the best match in the world, but I think that was, unlike a storyline, that was actually a earning respect match between the human beings that were in that match, because we were at odds at the time. But that's a high point. And I also enjoyed every match that I did with the people that were not the greatest wrestlers, like Scatman versus UFO was one of my absolute favorites. It was destroyed with the TWF Shop Zone commentary, but the match is really great. I enjoyed getting in there with Tough as Anaconda, and then again, Tough as Starscream when I was Big King, and then of course Tough when Nuke Ultima faced him at Royalty of the Ring. I'm really happy that I got to spend so much time with Kyle, because Kyle was my favorite. I don't even know if I've ever told him this, but when when Infinity and I went to LSWF to watch that event, which is what resparked bringing TWA back, it was actually his idea. So I've been maintaining this thing, yet I've never been the guy that wanted it to keep going or whatever. I mean, I was once I was in the fit of it, but it was never my idea. But when I saw the Rebels, Harley D and Falcon come out, and I think Falcon at the time was the world champion for LSWF, I thought he was brilliant. I really liked him. I thought he had the attitude down, and I couldn't wait to work with him. And then the day I met him, when I pushed this idea, you guys could work with us, and we have a Backyard Fed too. We could do a show. And he was just a nice, genuine guy. And he's like, my roommate is the head guy of LSWF. So let me run it by him. Then after I've talked to him about it, I'll give you a call, and we'll get a meeting, and we'll go from there. So I thought he was brilliant. Again, I'm jealous I didn't think of him for the Mount Rushmore, but Falcon is, in my opinion, a superstar, always has been, and he's one of the best, absolutely. So I loved working with him. But I think one of my really, really, really proud moments was when I went to one-on-one with Miz, because now for the first time ever, I'm in the ring against my own style. And that's highly unusual. And it hurts even more. Bravo to you, Miz, but it hurts a little more knowing that his flips and his acrobatic moves were prettier than mine. So we go in, we do the backflips, and then you're on commentary as Phil McCracken, and you're like, oh, he did a flip, oh, he did a flip, oh, he did a Oh, they're both morons on the double clothesline.
One last thing that I didn't mention, I'll wrap it up into one. Uh, Essentially, just how much trust people had in me. Like we've alluded to you trusting me with the booking power, Grave trusting me with his match, you trusting me with this idea for Viper and the Viper match of the mirror image and trusting me to do that. Miz trusting me with the IWF title and what have you. Like it always meant a lot to me that people came to trust me with the important stuff. And I'm really proud about that as well. All right. So we go from Curtis to Shorty from Rancho Cucamonga. First question, which we kind of answered already. Who was the brainchild behind the idea of TWA, TWF? What's the origin story?
Okay, so I'll make this one quick. So because we've been doing this stream for a while now, so let's get right to it. My friend Terminator, him and his parents got a divorce, so he had to move away from our town, so we didn't see him as much. But we had an inner circle; we hung out all the time. So he wanted us. He wasn't ready to say goodbye. He hadn't gone to his new school yet. He hadn't made new friends, so he decided that the best thing we could do was all go to his house and watch a WWF pay-per-view. So we did. We went, I think it was 1995. We went and we watched the Shawn Michaels winning the Royal Rumble. And that's what we watched. And the living room of his dad's place had a fireplace, this huge TV, and this wraparound sectional couch. And when it was done, they play it twice. When you order a pay-per-view, you watch it and then it restarts. So if you can't catch it at the original time, you can watch it later on. We watched the original time. So when it's getting ready to restart, my friend Terminator stands up and he says, "All right, guys, we can do this. Let's wrestle." And we're all sitting on the couch like, what are you talking about? And he goes, "We're going to wrestle. I'm going to be the Terminator. You guys make up your own characters and we'll start wrestling." And that's exactly what we did. And that's how Wrestling Group was started. That's how Pat the Bugman Riley became the world TWA champion. Or, of course, again, at that time, it was WG. So that's how TWA started. And I, unlike them, decided to create two characters. And they were twin brothers, Black Panther and White Tiger. And those two would eventually, when TWF came back, they became Big King and Scatman. There you go. That's the origin.
All right. So the first part of the question he asked later. So I'm just going to go with what are your favorite rivalries? For me, I actually put it down to the Mount Rushmore of rivalries for me. First, of course, how do you not put me and Damian? We were literally the driving force.
It's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to talk about any of the feuds without that one because we spent so much time doing it.
Lori, I think I feuded with every alter ego you've ever had there. Maybe not best. Fine. That would have been fun, though. But anyway.
That was my favorite feud. Best versus everyone. Because I'm the best. I've suplexed the locomotive.
And then, of course, Grave Tavern. I went into that, but that was a landmark one for me. The feud with Kingpin, where I thought the story of it started out with Big Time doing this rookie a favor and forming a tag team with them forming a bond over time. And then in a triple threat, he had the audacity to want the same thing he wanted and feeling betrayed about that, but ultimately decided, no, okay, fine, whatever. But in the end, Big Time's ego was too big. He couldn't handle the fact that he got one up on him, costing him the title, which led to the big match. Love it. And then, of course, my feud with Falcon, who once we had the feud, we looked for every opportunity to have a match together. I loved working with this guy. He was a really good meat and potatoes wrestling. We just beat the tar out of each other. Fun stuff. What about you?
Let's see. Obviously, any feud I did with Big Time is worth noting. One you guys aren't as specific with is my feud with Martino, which was hilarious. Because Martino, I think wrestled in maybe 4 events total his entire career, but he would always talk about how amazing he was. So I always thought that was funny. And I I don't understand this. I've gone through the videos because I wanted to see them again, and I've watched the finale, and I have another mandala effect because Martino Heat comes back for the finale, and of course that was the last event. So most of you guys that watched the TV show had no clue who he was because he came from the unfilmed era, and he's stealing his bit from The Rock. He's like, finally, Martino is back to TWA. And the commentator, Phil McCracken, goes, who? I always thought that was hilarious. But I've watched that tape over and over again, and that line isn't in there. So I don't know when that started, but it's not real. And feuds with Dan, Havoc were really great. I like those. I liked my feud with I really liked most of the feuds that I did. The only feud I didn't like was the one I had to do with BJ, and he's not a giving individual. There's another individual from his same group who is like, I don't remember when I wrestled him, but I had to. And when I wrestled him, he was calling moves that I don't even do. It's like, all right, you're going to give me a shoulder block. I'm Nuke Ultima. I don't do shoulder blocks. I can give you a spinning heel kick. I don't do shoulder blocks. So, but I would say that I pretty much enjoyed feuding with anyone as long as I could make them look good. So,
Who is the final TWF champion when TWF ended? That's a great question, Shorty. My answer to that is like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and you will find out.
yeah, exactly. Comment and let us know who you think should have been the final champion. But stay tuned. You'll see it in the finale.
Mm-hmm. Have you considered a TWA TWF connection? Sorry, force of habit. TWA TWF Hall of Fame. Yeah, in fact, we did it, didn't we, Damian?
Yeah, we've already done it. We used to give out awards at the end of each year. We'd get everyone together and we'd have like, who is the greatest icon of 2002 or 2001? Who is the most improved? Who had the best match and stuff like that. So it wasn't officially a Hall of Fame, but we wanted, since we weren't paying anyone anything, we wanted to let these people know how much we appreciated them. So we made awards, and yeah, they're not the most creative thing in the world, but it wasn't the award. It was the sentiment behind it that was important. I still have mine in my filing cabinet right over here. So.
All right. And next up, this was the first part of the rivalries question, where he asked us our favorite matches, which this video would go on for eternity. So he asks here, what are both of your guys' top 3 matches? So for this one here, it was difficult, but I got it down to 3. Okay. One, of course, Grave Tavern versus Grave Tavern in the Highway to Hell match. That one was instrumental in my career. My match with Miz for the IWF title was one of my favorite built matches ever.
That match is absolutely flipping amazing. One of the best TWF matches, period, bar none.
The goal of that match was to get Miz over, and I think by the end of it, we did.
Yep.
And then finally, a match which doesn't get enough credit, as it's just like a very quick one, Big Time versus Big King from VCW, which became what I like to call the elevator pitch to join TWF.
Yeah, the recruiting tapes.
Indeed. If we got you to the apartment and to talk about TWF, and you showed interest, one of us would coyly say, "Hey, well, if you would like to see what we could do, how about we throw in a really quick match? It's only like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then when we throw in that match, if you've signed with TWF, if you wrestled for us, I guarantee you were shown this match before your first match. Like this was essentially it's a quick, easy one. 10 minutes. We do all our cool stuff. There's a fun vertical suplex spot. Grave Tavern is losing his mind, putting us over to at the expense of VCW. It's just a really joyous quick 10 minutes.
Yeah, you don't do that. That's wrong. That match is also on my top 3. To those of you that have been watching TWF as these free previews have been released, obviously one of my favorites is the Scream versus Havoc and Miz. And this match is really special to me because I was Scream and I did stunts that I've never done as any of my other characters. And I really took everyone's idea of what Scream was and I flipped it on its head because everyone's like, what the hell is happening right now? So the VCW match, obviously, Big King versus Big Time Malcolm Fine, the triple threat match, and then let's see. What did I tell you? I'm forgetting, Malcolm. What did I tell you the other day when we prepped? What did I tell you was my last match?
Sorry, I don't remember. Shoot.
Wow, this is sad because I had that firmly in my mind and it just popped out of there.
Viper.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
The Anaconda versus Viper match was one of my absolute, and yes, and now I remember why. One of the ongoing gags throughout TWF was Black Panther versus White Tiger. They hated each other. They were both trained by different individuals. Their finishers were very similar. One of them did this move that became the Whopper when I was Big King, and it became the Nuke when I was Nuke. And the funny thing is, originally when I renamed it, it was called Ultima, but we changed it to Nuke shortly thereafter. But basically, you jump on the opponent's shoulders, and then you lean forward and fall and drive their head into the mat. It's an insanely cool wrestling move. I'm so proud of it because no one in pro wrestling uses anything like it. So it's my move, and no one's ever used it. The other was Tiger's Revenge, which was Scatman's move. And basically, it's the same thing. You jump on the opponent facing the same way, but you go backwards with a Hurricane Rana. And Nuke started using that move, so that was essentially called the Bahamut. So I wanted to know what it'd be like for these two, since I played both, to actually wrestle each other. What would it be like if Black Panther had to square off against White Tiger? And if it weren't for the brilliance of this man, whatever side he's on, I never would have discovered what that was like. And the FU to me for the rest of my career is the fact that not only did he do it well, but he did it better than me. Took a DDT and stood right up. Yeah, I don't sell to anacondas or jobbers.
And that's another one that stands the test of time as well. So definitely enjoy that. All right. What was TWF's version of WrestleMania? Come on, man. Snow Brawl.
Yo,
Snow
who
Brawl.
in the hell wrote that? Snow Brawl. January Snow Brawl. That was our WrestleMania. The next event that's coming, people. Subscribe. Click the notification bell. It's coming. Snow Brawl 3 is coming.
And you definitely want to check that out because there's a surprise appearance in the first match. So keep an eye out for that. No spoilers. Is there a phase 2 of the TWF Restoration Project? We are considering options. We've already discussed how we've got 2 house shows coming up, including one that includes some of our favorite hidden gems. Flying Hawaiian versus Keith Be Real. We got
that's a great match. That was my other match, actually. That one was my other match. Now that
okay.
But anyway, that one was great.
Big King versus his Big Mac versus Subway Steve Austin in a triple threat match. We got
food fight. The food fight. Yeah, that one's great.
Oh, and of course, Scatman taking on Pony Hardcore. Pony Hardcore actually brought his working shoes for that one. So there's some really
Yes.
fun ones coming up
Yes,
there.
that's another one of those jobbers gets flipped on their head and they become real performers. So that's great stuff. Can't wait to
Indeed.
see that.
And I'm looking at ideas, including some out there ones. So we'll see what we can do. I've been enjoying this one with Damian. Granted, it went on a bit. It's going on. I underestimated how long, but it's been fun so far here.
Yeah, we've
All
been
right.
trying to crank these videos for you guys out as quickly as we can. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, because you have to backtrack, you have to line up audio, because sometimes the video is good, but the audio sucks, so you need to re-record the audio. There's a lot of stuff going on for us to get these videos out. And one of the guys working with us behind the scenes has let us know that he would really like to see his stuff appear on the TWF Restoration Project Channel. And I know Malcolm and this individual are working on that. There are some caveats, obviously, but Malcolm having just maybe not as much editing experience as I have, but a decent amount. And of course, he can always ask and call in a favor if he needs me to design some graphics for him. But you could potentially be seeing some of our other matches from other companies that we had the honor and pleasure of wrestling with. So that may be in the works. We'll see. There are caveats to it. There's certain things we are allowed and not allowed to do, and we are going to stick to those things.
And finally, will you be continuing any other events that haven't been aired at the end of the TWF TWA era, such as EBW, for example? And you know what? I'll go into it here. There were plans for it. You guys may remember forever ago, there was a fun little video that Wham recorded where he approached Harley D. I thought it was a great bit of business here.
I shouldn't have deleted it. I'm sorry I deleted it. I should have kept that video.
Yeah.
Although I had to take it down.
Yeah, where essentially he, bought the rights to the EBW and a bunch of other VCW, LSWF, etc., and to put it onto the channel. That was the plan. However, BJ, as we mentioned, unfortunately, is a piece of garbage. He doxed us. He said he threatened us quite a bit here. Now, if it had just been BJ, honestly, I'd have the third episode of EBW up by now. However, other members of the of EBW did approach me and spoke to me like a human being.
Yeah, exactly. And I was involved in these discussions as well, because me being the leader and owner of TWF, I was originally attacked after this individual figured out that I wasn't the one who owned the channel where this stuff was going. And in my situation, I had to take some of the videos down from my channel. So I just figured I don't want to deal with it. It's not worth it. So, 20 views is not worth the headache this idiot is coming after me for. So,
yeah. So that's a long short of it. They explained why. And this is one of the reasons why, I thanked Jamie hours ago, where he essentially, not like we were out there, like everything post high noon, I believe, was just us doing the shows. But there's some people that they went too far. They said saying certain words during doing certain things that if it went out and went public, I can understand. Now, granted, the EBW members were nervous about him going viral. I don't really think they had anything to worry about because honestly, it's very difficult to do that. That would imply a lot of work on our part. It's not just simply you put it up on YouTube. You got to put it up on the forums, on social medias. You have to share it with influencers who have significantly more followers than we do.
right.
Trust me, if we
had an individual reach out and be like, hey, you need to take this down from my channel. I want to touch on something else, Malcolm. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to touch on this because it's relevant to this whole thing. He said, you don't have permission to feature me in these videos. And I'm like, oh, okay. I said, these videos are invisible. And he goes, well, how did I find them? Because somebody told you that they exist. You looked for them specifically and you found them. the video that I took down that he used as the catalyst to tell me to take all those videos down, which was only, it's 4 total. I think I've took 2 down and 2 that I have yet to film. After I'm done with the project channel, I will be more focused on my channel. So I'll get back to telling the Caleb Gainsworth story. So we haven't done that yet. But I took the videos down because until you get 1,000 views, you're not relevant. The video that he wanted me to take down had been up for 3 years, people. 3 years. And it had 18 views on it. If it ain't going to take off at 18 views, it ain't taking off at ever. So that's what I meant when I said invisible. You need to be thousands and thousands of views. That's what I meant when I said it's invisible. I don't know why you're worried about it. And that's what Malcolm is also talking about. So
yeah, a key part to going viral, people need to care. Sorry, BJ, no one cares.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So there was discussion on how to handle it because you've seen BJ in a lot of the recent videos. Like, this is quite the headache because BJ was one of those guys who worked every territory. This is kind of like, what if Hogan came out and said, I don't want my footage being used? Yeah. Sorry, WrestleMania. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So, but we ultimately made the decision, or I made the decision that, look, he knew he came on private property. He knew we were going to put this on TV. In fact, that's why he was even here. And we have footage of him joking about how we were going on public access.
Yeah.
And he performed and knew he was getting recorded for the purpose of going on TV. So he knew. So no, he's part of TWF's history, whether we like it or not. So he is going to remain.
Trust me, we don't like it.
Yeah. And as of yet, I haven't heard anything. So hopefully that continues with BJ. But
the last point I wanted to make on this topic is that 20 years ago, cancel culture didn't exist. It does now. And again, I say it, and I'm sure you guys are probably, why does he keep saying testosterone? We're men hyped up on testosterone. We're in our 20s. It's when it's the most prevalent in men. And, we're going to say some stuff. And some of these other companies were doing content that, frankly, I was never cool with. Admittedly, I have no problem with swearing. You've heard me swear a couple times in this stream here. But TWF wasn't about, some of the topics that some of these other companies did, and which is why people were reaching out to us going, please don't put this stuff up on the internet. It's highly sensitive topics, race, sexuality, all these kinds of weird things that can and will get you canceled and destroy lives. And Malcolm and I aren't interested in destroying anybody's lives. We thought we did some damn good work. It's good work. Sure, we don't have rings, but we did some damn good shows, and we'd like to be able to share that with the people that we care about. That's why we're going to pop the confetti and break out the champagne and have some drinks when we hit 100 views on a video. Thankfully, we've done that, but we didn't really think anyone would see it. In 18 views in 3 years, it's not going viral, bro. Not happening.
Yeah. In closing and pushing BJ aside, the bottom line was a lot of the figureheads of EBW are a competitor. Once again, our WCW, they weren't comfortable with it going up, and I kind of understand. There's one person in there that honestly has a right to be worried about cancel culture, but at the same time, if they're not comfortable with it, we ultimately made the decision, okay, it won't go up.
Yeah, it's TWF is ours. You can't argue with us because you were driving 3.5 hours to come to a private residence knowing your show is going to go on TV. We can't post somebody else's content that we don't own without their permission, which is why we tried to get their permission, and they said, we will destroy you. End of story. But like I said, there are some content creators that we're working with that are willing to share at least some of their stuff. And Malcolm and this individual are working on that. So hopefully we'll see that come down the pike.
Yeah, I had this idea, like, wouldn't it be cool if the channel became sort of like the WWE network of backyard feds? And but some people, like, it makes me feel more fortunate that you and I led like we led. Like, people, we can tell our crew that, hey, our show is up on YouTube, and they're ecstatic. No one's
Yeah.
like thinking like, oh, God forbid someone sees me do that.
Yeah,
No,
I don't want anyone to see me. Yeah, exactly. So,
and so God
that's
bless you
that
guys
question.
at TWF. All right. Really quick, Blatant Interference Wrestling writes in, yeah, I'm new. Granny Breaker sent me. I watched a few
Bone
matches.
Breaker, shout out, brother. We love you and your subscribers, bro. Your content's great. Keep making them.
Always
We'll keep watching them.
eternal friend of the project. Keep it up. It's cool you're sharing your history. We agree. And thank you for writing in. And speaking of Bone Breaker, right? Bone Breaking Action writes in, what about the hurt real? What about anything that hurt real bad or any injuries? Any drinking alcohol before matches? I ask because we're all about the same age and I didn't drink, but when me and my friends did, a lot of them drank. First off, hard no on drinking. This is my response here.
Yeah.
First, hard no on drinking. Wrestling is tough enough without being intoxicated. I mean, like, to put it simply, do you want Damian going for that 450 splash while intoxicated? Like, does Damian want me trying to catch him from that 450 splash while I'm trying to figure out which Damian to grab? Like, no. After the show, though, different story.
Yeah. I want to touch on this one really quickly. Obviously, we're guys. We're in the college years, so I'm sure outside of the ring, there was a lot of drinking and, marijuana use going on. But the reality of it is Malcolm and I had a no tolerance thing for being in that ring. If you were at an event and we caught whiff of you being high or you being drunk, again, my stature on this is what you do in your own time is your damn business. But you're not endangering my friends or people that are getting paid nothing to get in that ring because you think it's cool to drink all day or you want to be high or whatever it is. So we had a no tolerance policy for that stuff while we were shooting. But we had drinking parties and stuff going on all the time. So yes, there was drinking going on after the cameras rolled, not before. And the last thing I want to say about this is, yes, we had several minor injuries. We had a couple of concussions. We had a couple of people get winded, knock the wind out of them. There were a couple of times, although you can't really see it now, we had to cut camera because somebody lost consciousness, stuff like that. But I think me breaking Tuff's femur was probably the worst injury that we ever had. So we were very lucky because, and I tell people this all the time when they get to interview me, because I did go pro 7 years after this thing was all done. And then I became a professional wrestling promoter. At the time, ECW was a big thing. Hardcore was a big thing. Kamikaze matches and death matches were a big thing. I hate all of that stuff. I've always hated that stuff. And it's funny saying that because when you watch a channel, you'll see I was probably in more of those matches than anyone else. But here's the reality. I didn't want to be in those matches. The individuals I'm wrestling wanted to be in those matches. I think hardcore objects, when used properly, is cool. But for the most part, I think it takes away from the athletic ability of the actual individual performing the stunts and acting and getting the audience involved, because the Icon match that I was a part of made 3 of the ladies, 2 of which wrestled for us, and a couple girlfriends of some of our wrestlers were crying by the time that match was over. I'm proud of that match, but I've never been a fan of hardcore. I think it takes away too much from the actual wrestling. That's just my opinion.
As a fun aside, I did include some quick bullet points. I'll try to get through these as quickly as possible of injuries I've had in my time in TWF that stood out. First of all, in TWF Over the Top, in the match with Bess and Pony Hardcore versus Schizo and Odd Paul. Their debut in the company, I might add. Odd Paul, in like literally the first 10 seconds of the match, kicks me direct in the dick. And you can see me down in the corner for a good chunk of it. During the Gemini title match, the very famous one-time match, me and Anaconda actually teamed up and we took on Havoc and Soul Reaver. You can see, I think it was actually fairly early in the match, Soul Reaver gives me a tombstone on a cookie sheet. And he didn't wait for me to get my hands around his waist, so my thumb actually went underneath his knee and the cookie sheet as he drove it down. No joke, the entire skin that was my thumbprint was ripped off and it's like flapping in the wind for the rest of that match. So you're seeing me complete that match, which include my own partner attacking me with no thumbprint on my left hand. So that was fun. During a house show, I took a pedigree wrong. You want to be kind of like this when you're the one receiving a pedigree. I was like this. So I landed on my head and I was loopy, and I probably had a concussion, but we didn't really know what those were back then. So I just sort of took it. Fun fact, going back to the fact that I am a flexible person back then, when I took that pedigree, my foot went all the way around the person who was giving me the move, Curtis, hit him right here in the back of the head. Sadly, the footage is gone, but you can see him look up after giving me the pedigree and start looking around because he thought someone hit him from behind. But it was my foot.
Cynthia Rothrock.
And finally, and very small spoiler, but I'm in the finale. Look forward to that. In my last match at the show, I'm driven into the wall, which once again was an unfinished attic, and there was a nail sticking out, and it went right into my shoulder right here. Finished the match with a small hole in my shoulder. So those are some injuries that I could name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was one of the people that my favorite quick injury to wrap up here. It's one that always sticks out, and people couldn't believe it. I wasn't conscious for it, but at the time we hadn't built the sandwich ring. We had mattresses over a tarp, and what happened at the time is a rock somehow with the wind or whatever got under one of the mattresses, and Grizzly gave me his finisher, the gore. And he went out of the shot after the match had concluded. He won that match. And he was telling everyone by the camera, wow, Damian was really limp in that. It was great. It was so easy to flop him around and stuff. And then it took a few people a few seconds to notice that I was still in the ring. I hadn't got up yet. And the reason was because he knocked me out. And when we get up, when they wake me up and we're all trying to figure out what the hell happened, we pull the tarp up over and there's a rock right there.
Yeah, so real quick, no fault to Grizzly. He just did the move like he's done a million times in practice.
Exactly. That was not on him. That was just an unfortunate incident that took place.
It was going to happen. Unfortunately, it was Damian. And I will say, rewatching the footage, and I showed my wife this too. You're like, I don't know where he's getting that you went limp, because you were stiffening as you just fell into unconsciousness. It's kind of scary to watch now, but
yeah,
that was while Damian, he was laying on the ground, so everyone checks on him, and somebody thought they saw a movement. So I actually, you motherfucker, and we laugh it off, but then you still don't get up, and that's when we realize, oh, okay, cut the camera, he's out.
Yeah.
Yeah. There, honestly, injuries could be in one in and of itself, a video. I mean,
but in the future, maybe we get into that. We'll see.
But anyway, that was questions, folks. Thanks so much for writing in. We had a lot of fun doing this here. Underestimated how much knowledge we had on these subjects.
Yeah, well, it's great, and we get to share this stuff because one of the upcoming videos is actually the day we tore apart the ring, and that's going to be released also, so you guys can see we didn't have GoFundMe and Kickstarter or rich parents, so you'll get to see the ring that we created that you're watching right now. Cost us $143 to create, but you'll see us tear that apart. So that video is also coming. Thank you so much. Give Malcolm's TWF Restoration Project Channel a like, share the videos, comment, subscribe. We love you guys. We're so excited that we get to share this piece of history. 2 of our guys went pro. 2 of the guys that worked with us either went pro or were pro before they worked with us. So we're very proud of those facts. And I ended up becoming a professional wrestling promoter until I broke my neck. And then that was the end of that. So I'm astute in wrestling history. So reliving this with the guys is like reconnecting with a family. And all we wanted to do is show the audience today what we were capable of back in the day. And we built something that mattered to the small Vermont community of Lyndonville and St. Johnsbury. And it was a wild freaking ride. We really wish we had all the tapes, because that would be brilliant, but we're releasing what we have. So thank you very much for joining us. If you've watched the entire video, we appreciate you. We love you, and keep watching. And I got to plug my channel. Later in 2023, the Caleb Gainsworth story will continue on the Who's Been a Chinger channel. So please pop by and you'll see me and my team over there.
Yeah, never be afraid to plug that channel. Please like and subscribe over there, folks. And thank you for joining us here. This was fun. Take care.
Let us know in the comments below if you want to see us do more videos like this, because we have a lot of backyard and real wrestling knowledge. I'm not down with everything that's going on, but if it's on our content, we got a lot to say. Bye-bye.
Watch this.